Mm-hmm.
252.
Okay. The Son of God is my identity. Myself is holy beyond all the thoughts of holiness of which I now conceive. Its shimmering and perfect purity is far more brilliant than is any light that I have ever looked upon. Its love is limitless, with an intensity that holds all things within it, in the calm of quiet certainty. Its strength comes not from burning impulses, which move the world, but from boundless love of God himself. How far beyond this world myself must be, and yet how near to me and close to God. Father, you know my true identity. Reveal it now to me, who am your son, that I may waken to the truth in you and know that heaven is restored to me.
Good. That place where you're at, that place where those emotions seem to be coming up, there's an association with everything, right? Cause and effect are not separate. So it's impossible that your mind doesn't try to make an association with the emotionality of things. But if you can equate it as a blanket thing, with healing, with the idea of resurrection, the idea of purification, you'll learn to equate that emotionality with the rising up of your own frame of reference, the rising up of the light in you, the birth of the Christ in you. And you'll learn to be less defensive about it, and you won't want to turn off your screen. You won't want to hide from it and pretend it's not happening. It'll become your joy. It'll become your absolute joy to be emotionally distraught, whereas at one time that would have been seen as something embarrassing because it represents a lack of strength in the human world, a lack of competence in the human world. And now we're embracing it as a lack of competence. Thank God I'm incompetent here. Thank God in this world I can't hold it all together. I can't keep my shit under control. Thank God that I can't. Otherwise, this world would be my reality. I would fit in here and this would be my home, and I would be doomed to die. My saving grace is that this world is not my home. I'm not from here. Let me be joyous for my tears. Let me be joyous for the upwelling of emotion that at one time would have caused some sort of embarrassment or, loss of face. Here I am, a blubbering mess. Here I am, a complete meltdown of my former self. Thank God. Let me present this face to the world as I would present any other. You'd be surprised how many look to you in this for some kind of way, for some kind of example. Don't hide it. Let it happen. Show them that the strength comes from defenselessness, that strength comes through release. Let your tears be seen as well as your joys. We are unabashed. We're embracing our emotional condition and allowing our healing to be exposed, allowing our healing to be visual, to be fully representative of absolutely everything that we're about in relationship to our journey to our Father in our awakening. There's nothing that we want to hide. It's a joy. These things are a joy. Try to learn to think of them that way. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I remember being naked in the forest once with 1,000 people at a gathering, at a spiritual, or it wasn't a spiritual gathering, it was well, I guess it was a spiritual gathering. 1,000 people at a rainbow festival, and it was the first one I'd ever been to. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was. My girlfriend at the time who took me didn't explain anything. She wanted it to be a complete experience for me. And when I got there, I was so confronted. Half the people were walking around naked, covered in body paint, mud, whatever, and hair all in dreadlocks. And there was people singing songs and playing drums 24 hours a day, even into the night, into the morning, and chanting and like prayer workshops and all sorts of stuff going on. There was so much stuff going on. Didgeridoos could be heard playing off the hills in the distance. And there was just this vibration of unadulterated expression that to me in that time in my life was something that was not really abhorrent, but unseen before. I had not witnessed it. I'd never come across anything like it. And I think it was on the second day or the third day, I realized all my inhibitions. I realized how abashed I was. I realized how introverted and introspective I was compared to all these people that were just completely free with their expression, whether doesn't matter what it was. And I found myself down at the river's edge having a wash, which was the only time that I felt comfortable to be naked because everybody there was naked. It was kind of ridiculous if I'd worn any clothes. And when I came out, there was two girls there who were mixing up a big churn of ochre with water that they'd made, this mud, and they'd ground it down or whatever, however they did it. And they called to me. They called me over, and I was freshly washed. And they said, "Come and let us paint you. Let us paint you with ochre." And I stood there while these two girls covered my whole body, my genitals and everything, which was a little confronting, like with this ochre mud. And I had to stand there while it dried. They told me, just stand there and let it dry in the sun. And there was all these ideas. It was good for your skin and like sucks out all your pores and all this sort of stuff. I had like literally on my face everywhere. And something in my mind knew that as a declaration, I had to walk back to the camp area where there was people with and without clothes, people I knew and didn't know. I had to go there naked. So I bundled up my clothes and I carried my clothes, and I was just this mud kind of like earth, and I felt like a primitive tribal man, like somehow like my roots were calling me. And I walked around for 3 days covered in mud. I slept with the mud and everything. I just went 3 days completely naked. And it took me that 3 days to realize nobody cared. No one was looking at me, judging me, nothing. It was all my own fears that were coming up. And there was a few other moments that happened in that, which I won't get into right now. Beautiful moments, beautiful, beautiful moments. A few other moments that happened, but on the day that I decided I have to go and have a wash in the river and wash off all this mud because I'm starting to really stink, I went to the river and washed the mud off. And on the way back, I was still naked without the mud, which seemed to be the last facade of falsity that I'd just washed off. And as if I could hide behind the mud, it didn't really make any difference. And when I walked back, I was down at the river for about an hour or so, just enjoying the water. And when I walked back, there was a circle of people. My girlfriend was amongst them. A circle of people. I don't know what they were doing. They were having a talking circle or something going on. And I had to walk through them or around them to get back to my camp. And I saw my girl, I can't even remember her name, but I saw my girlfriend there, and I went and sat down beside her, and instantly I burst into tears. And I cried for about an hour in that circle. I couldn't stop the crying. I couldn't stop the tears. And I had people coming over, putting their hands on my shoulder and stuff like that. And I think I was a bit of a disruption to whatever the purpose of their circle was. But there were those in the circle that recognized that there was something going on in me that was greater than there was a release happening, whatever. And in me, I decided I could have gone back to the camp and just cried and whatever was. I didn't even know what was going on. It was all those energies of just coming up, and I just had to let it happen. I just had to let it happen. It was the right place, the right time, the right people were there, the right company. Everyone was understanding, and they knew what was actually happening. Seemed to me I was the only one that didn't know what was happening. And then after that, that was it. There was no, it's like I don't want to defend myself in my healing. I don't want to defend myself. I don't want to hide. I don't want to covet anything. Just let it happen.